On this episode, we talk to our buddy David Cluck, filmmaker, raconteur, and all-around interesting expat.
So if you love stories from the always fascinating world of filmmaking in Thailand, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to set up a beer bar on an empty beach somewhere, but has so far failed to make it work because the startup supply of beer in my fridge mysteriously keeps going missing.
Yeah, it never sticks around for very long.
Don't know why.
And I met Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago, fell in love with all the money I was saving on skin whitening cream compared to my Thai friends, so I never left.
I know how you feel, man. Shampoo, don't have to waste money on that for me. That's money in my pocket.
It is. You're making money every day.
That's right.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Thailand's efforts to stop the illegal sale of imported elephant pants, which apparently it owns the patent on. More politics talk on the ongoing cases with the Move Forward Party. A dramatic update on the ethnically Caucasian winner of the Miss Japan crown, and discussions on a Facebook post from a guy who says he has a hard time making ends meet in Bangkok while earning over 200,000 baht a month. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Guy must be eating some expensive kamudang.
Heck yeah.
And don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all of the bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast Badass Patrons Only to hear the regular shows and bonus shows in the same place. Okay, so this episode, Ed is joined by our buddy David Cluck, a member of the Directors Guild of America, veteran of dozens of major Hollywood motion pictures, and a few tiny ones too, raconteur extraordinaire, and just all-around great guy. Now, those who haven't worked in the film biz might not know what a strange and unique industry it is, which naturally attracts some strange and unique people, but that's perfect for a guy like David, who is a great example of that interesting expat that has a million stories for any occasion. So Ed and David get into his long career as an assistant director on feature films, how he ended up in Thailand, why he has chosen to make Thailand his home, and also why Thailand is such a great destination for foreign film and TV production. So here is part one of Ed's interview with our buddy David Cluck.
All right, everyone. I'm here on the back soys of Sukhumvit Road with a good friend of mine, Mr. David Cluck. David, this is a long time coming. I think I talked about being on the show probably 5 years ago. Thank you for finally doing it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So David is in the film industry, has been in the film industry for a long time, as some of our other guests have been. He primarily, or is most well known as an assistant director, but in his long career has worn many hats. And for the last, about 15 years? Is that about right? You've been in Thailand, based in Thailand.
I came here in 2008 originally. I produced a film here, and then I 2009 came back on a holiday, just because having worked here for a couple months, I wanted to come back and just enjoy Thailand, and where I wasn't working every day, and just enjoy my time here. And it was really in 2009, and then I came, I started coming back and forth and coming back and forth. Then I started working in Thailand. I started getting job offers here, which was great. Production gigs and stuff like that.
Cool.
And that really fueled up to about 2016 is when I decided I was kind of doing the hotel shuffle, staying in different places and long-term rentals and things like that, long-term service departments. And then I rented a full-time condo down in Phrom Phong and have since 2016.
Great. Well, there's a lot of different reasons I wanted you on the show. I mean, as everyone knows, you are the life of the party, an excellent raconteur, if I do say so myself.
Okay.
But I think you're a very interesting expat because you have worked around the world. You've got a very solid career, and you probably could live anywhere you want. I mean, if you wanted to live in Europe, you could. You've got some friends over there. You've traveled over there.
Yeah.
You like New York. You go to New York a lot. You're from L.A. or Southern California. You could live everywhere, but you found a home here. So I want to tell that story, so like how you ended up here. So maybe we'll just go back to the beginning. I know from being your friend that you kind of, in your early 20s, you were a musician, is that right?
I was a drummer in rock and roll, various rock and roll bands from really about 13 on. So I got a pretty early start.
Oh, cool.
And it was kind of fascinating for me I used to play at some of my own high school dances.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That was fun. And then I think I was a junior in high school, or it might have been between my junior and senior years, that I got asked to join a band called Night Flight.
Night Flight.
Night Flight, yeah. It was kind of named after the Led Zeppelin song. And that was really one of the better bands in the South Orange County area, which is where I'm from, San Clemente area. I went to San Clemente High School. I was playing with a bunch of old guys. So I was 17, and my bandmates were like 24. They were like ancient.
Oh, my God.
That's ancient back then.
Old men.
Yes. And so it was strange because they could like go to bars and stuff like that, and I couldn't even get into some of the clubs we were playing if I wasn't playing. So, but yeah, so that was kind of, I think my musical career peaked at 17, sadly, when Night Flight opened 2 times for Chuck Berry.
Oh, is that right?
Some entrepreneur had taken the one movie theater at the time called the Miramar Theater in San Clemente and converted it into, in addition to showing movies, he also had live music bands come. So guys like the Knack,
nice.
George Thorogood,
nice.
Tim Weisberg all played there, and then he booked Chuck Berry, and we'd done a couple of gigs there at the club with some other local acts. And including Chateau, which was the drummer of Chateau was Matt Sorum, who went on to be the drummer for The Church and Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
And yeah, so he's from Mission Viejo. He's a few years older than me, but kind of knew each other. I mean, we knew of each other, and we always were friendly. He was a super nice guy. And he was an immensely better drummer than me, frankly. But yeah, he was from that area. And then when the owner of the club, the Miramar, said, "Hey, Chuck Berry's coming. Would you guys be willing to open for him?" You were
like,
sure.
Who's that? Who's Chuck Berry?
Yeah, exactly. But that was an experience. But
well, man, I mean, meet the. We got to get to film at some point. But the whole music scene in SoCal is incredible because it's not obviously just that there's tons of famous people there. The local organic music scene's crazy, and so many bands have come out of SoCal. It's crazy.
Yeah. Or they've gravitated towards them. I mean,
right.
Certainly the 2 most famous bands, in my opinion, out of SoCal, organic ones were the Eagles and Van Halen.
Oh, right. Sure.
The Doors, of course, as
sure.
well. So, I mean, there are quite a few of them, but a lot of people that have gravitated towards...
True that. Yeah, some of them are transplants.
Great. Yeah.
Well, that's L.A.
That's LA, right. And that's New York, So I'm a second generation California. My mom was born in South Central L.A.
Gotcha.
And because my grandparents had relocated from Missouri to California after the war.
Okay.
Yeah, so after World War II. So my mom was born in the 40s in downtown LA, and then they moved to Whittier, and I was born in Whittier, and
gotcha.
My dad's from the Bay Area, and
gotcha.
met my mom. And
so you are SoCal born and bred.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, not to jump too far ahead, but that was why if somebody had told me that in my early 40s I'm going to come to a Southeast Asian country and fall in love with it and give up. I mean, I owned a home in Santa Monica. I still do own a home in Santa Monica, and had a pretty bustling career at the time, and was going to give all that up and move to Southeast Asia.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Even when I was 30 and a lawyer in the States, if you had told me I was going to live in Thailand, I would have thought you were crazy.
Yeah,
It
was, but for me, it was an absolute and total mind shift in a very good way. That kind of. It took a while to kind of give myself permission that it was okay to shirk my perceived responsibilities of staying with my nose to the grindstone and working hard and doing movie after movie after movie. And there was a guy whose opinion I really respected, who's one who basically says, through a discussion, and it was numerous and a lengthy discussion, was like, you just need to figure out a way to start spending more time in Thailand, because it seems I can see it in your eye when you talk about it. You light up. And
interesting.
And having that sort of permission, what I perceived as permission, was a seminal moment for me, and it's really started my progression towards being a full-time person here.
Well, there's a lot of cool things I like about your Thai story, which we're going to get there. But I might as well just say this now. A lot of people, when they come to Thailand when they're older, they kind of go into somewhat of like maybe like a semi-retirement, and they're really kind of slowing down, and they might do a little bit of work here and there. But I mean, you've kept your career going here. Like maybe you would have got more work in LA, or who knows. But the bottom line is, you still have a real career. Like you're not retired. You are not retired.
I like that aspect of it. I mean, I'm getting to that age where I'm working a lot less. I mean, I always tell people that know me here in Thailand that you wouldn't recognize me in LA, because I was just that guy who was just always working.
Right.
Where here I'm not. I mean,
especially COVID.
COVID changes everything. COVID just threw a wrench in the works for a lot of stuff, and even threw me a personal wrench in terms of where I wanted to be in my life. How much time I want to spend working, how much time I want to spend on the road.
Sure.
Because I don't, I'm always happy to work and enjoy working in Thailand. The last movie I did, though, was shot between Hungary, Slovakia, and Bosnia.
Right.
The River Wild, which was, a movie set in Idaho, but shot in Eastern Europe or Central Europe. And, and that was nice. That was a great experience to do that. And before that, I'd done a project in Thailand, and before that, I'd done a couple of projects in LA. And in the time I've been coming to Thailand, I've done films in San Francisco and in New York and Alabama and in all these other places. So it's not like I was really wedded to LA as a full-time place, anyways. Because
you were working all over the place.
I'd gotten to the point in my career which took a long time, and I was very desirous of that moment where I started doing jobs on the road, and my first big movie on the road. Not big. I always done relatively small films, but it was like a $10 million budget movie, and it was in Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown.
Exactly.
You know you've made it when you're making a movie in Cleveland, Ohio.
If I can make it
I'm not sure that was
Ohio.
Cleveland.
And
that's great.
So so that was, and then because of the way the incentives have really dominated the business, film, production incentives, financial incentives, tax credits, and things like that.
It's made it a global thing.
And it dominates the business. Almost nobody greenlights a film now, especially an independent film, without evaluating if that project can be filmed in a state or a country that has a significant.
Can we shoot this in Bolivia? They've got a great tax credit.
Right, exactly. So places like Bulgaria, Romania, Thailand now, many places. Certainly in the United States, that's why so many movies are filmed in Georgia. Atlanta is a huge production center now.
Gotcha.
New Mexico is. All these places that have become, that have a generous incentive, because it all gets down to dollars and cents.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. We'll come back to this. So you were like a young musician. So how did you make the transition to getting into movies?
And then it was like about 22 that I was delivering flowers, and I thought, maybe I should start taking classes at that community college at Mount Sac. Maybe I'll find something I want to do.
Sure,
but I don't think I'm long for the music business. And I remember talking to some friends, like, so what do you want to do? It's like, I don't know. I politics are kind of interesting. Would I want to get into politics? No, I don't know. With law, I'm like a lawyer. I'm 22. That means like I'm 30 before I get out of college and law school, working part-time and putting myself through school.
Right.
So I just took a few courses at the community college. So I was working 4 days a week. I went to school 2 days a week, and had lovely Sundays off. And I took my first class was a radio and TV production course at Mount Sac, and they had just sort of started, and they didn't have state-of-the-art equipment. They didn't have anything really fancy, but I remember kind of just enjoying the class. And then I went from that radio and TV production class to a physical TV production course, and we had these Sony cameras, 3-chip cameras, and a porta-brace, 3/4-inch U-matic recording things.
Oh wow, those are big. Those are big, huh?
Exactly. You have to carry them both, one on one shoulder, one on the other, the camera on the other shoulder. And so I took the course. I had a director, David Mead, an instructor, not a director. My professor, David Mead. I can't believe I remember his name, but a really good guy. And I think he saw something in me that I was pretty motivated. I got there and I was like, this is cool, because I'd never been scholastically or academically interested at all.
Gotcha.
My last year in high school was the one required government class, PE, and 3 periods of auto shop. That was my entire senior year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, I'd never had business classes. I'd had pre-algebra.
Right.
That was as far as.
But you were doing your own thing, doing your music.
I was playing music, and you know, so that was, I really focused on that. But now I was like really fascinated with the idea of learning, so I was really digging it. And I remember David at one point split us up into groups, and he said, "Okay, so here's you 7 go here, you 7 go there, and you 7 go there. So decide amongst you, you know, who's going to be the director, who's going to be the cameraman, who's going to be the sound person, and this and that." So I remember sitting there looking at these other 6 people, and somebody said, "So who's going to be the director?" And I said, "I am." Right. And that was it, and that just changed everything for me, because now I had 6 pairs of eyes looking at me like, "So what are we going to do?" Let's do a story on what's going on at the campus on this blah blah blah, and that's what we did. And then I also started editing, so we would shoot stuff and we had to edit it ourselves. And I was really fascinated. I loved editing, and that's where David Mead thought I should go. He said, you have a flair for editing. You really have a sense of the timing and putting stuff together and molding a story, you know, out of raw footage. But you know, I know my personality is I couldn't be in a room all day.
You know, it's kind of cool that this foundation you got was very broad, where you were doing like directing, editing, and you're getting a little bit of everything. This reminds me of our mutual friend Paul Spurrier, who, listeners, if you remember, he was a guest on the show. I believe it was season 5. I'm going to say something like episode 62 or something like that. But our buddy Paul, when he went to film school, was the same thing, where he had to learn kind of everything.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think that's what the education system was back then. Because film school, I mean, that was when, if you wanted to go to film school back in the early 80s, you went to USC, UCLA, NYU, and maybe 1 or 2 other schools. Those are the only film programs that really existed back then. Now, almost every university has a film program of some sort.
Right.
And I don't know that, because I never graduated from film school. I never graduated from junior college. I went and I got a job really soon after that one TV production class. But that's kind of what happened to me, is I ended up, getting the chance to learn. You had to do everything from the ground up.
So obviously TV is a feeder for film to some extent. But so how did you make that jump?
I met a commercial. I'd taken a class. I signed up for a class called Acting for Directors, taught by Judy Weston, and who I'd met when they were making a movie called One Cup of Coffee, which was shot in downtown Covina, because downtown Covina had this very cute little charming downtown.
Oh, wow, okay.
Used to film there all the time, and I'd gone down there with a camera crew, and we did a story on these people that were doing a movie. And the director was a nice guy, and we started talking, and I told him I was interested in films and stuff. He's like, "Oh, we should meet Judy. This lady's visiting tonight. She teaches this. She wrote a book and teaches this class." So I ended up taking her class. And in that class, I met a commercial director, a guy named Oscar Bassenson, who was mostly a tabletop food director. He did famous for a lot of great food commercials and tabletop product stuff, and
Gotcha.
But also comedy stuff, because he was a very funny guy. And he became my next mentor. So I got to be friends with him, and I was like, I'm actually interested in, I'm not really a director, but I'd love to work in production. He's like, "Well, you're willing to PA, meaning production assistant, like below?" So I'm like, "Sure, anything." So I came and helped
that's
him
the advantage of your 20s. That's your advantage of your 20s.
Oh man, it was no problem for me. I was totally into it. And so I came and helped him on a spec project that he was doing, this fake commercial. And right after that, he's like, "Would you be interested in a full-time position with my company?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Oh, nice.
And so he offered me $300 a week. So I went from my corporate salary, expense account. I think I had a company car at one point at the cable company, to making $300 bucks a week. And then we did productions. I would get bonus. He took care of me. He was a great guy. But the first thing I did was produce this short film for him.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I knew nothing about film, but the first job I did, I was, going out location scouting. I was casting. I was doing because he was doing other jobs, and I was like, I had to get his production ready, and I learned.
Man, it's
I
very
literally
hands-on.
did the Foley work on it.
I mean, that's great. Just the hands-on thing.
It was,
and of course, just to clarify, so at this time, it really was going from. So you started on video, like pretty retro video equipment, but these were film shoots on film.
These were 35 millimeter high end. It was just like, oh my gosh. We spent more.
So you just jumped in
one day on wardrobe on this commercial than was my equipment budget for the year in cable TV.
Wow.
So it was big budget stuff, shooting on sound stages in Hollywood. My office was in Hollywood. I moved to Hollywood. It was
you
great.
were 26, 27, something
26, yeah. So it was 1990. So I remember that was when that kind of transitioned. I did my first gig with Oscar in December of 89.
Now, I happen to know that you've worked on more than 50 films, but let's just say, what is the kind of first film that you worked on where maybe there were some stars or where you felt like, wow, like I've arrived, like either a star or a director or a budget where you were like, shit, this is not minor leagues anymore. Was there any movie like that, or was it just more slow?
No, I think one of them was the first big one was the one I did out of town in Cleveland, and that was a hard show. It was just there was a lot of elements to it that made it very difficult, and it was Rob Lowe was the star of it.
Oh, so Rob Lowe. So that's he was huge. He was huge. Man.
He was huge then. Yeah.
So you got to work with a proper star.
Yeah, exactly. And then within a year of that, I got a movie. I'd gotten back to L.A., had done a small movie, and then somebody called me and said, "Hey, there's this Jeff Bridges movie that's going to be shooting in L.A., and I know they're looking for an AD." I'm like, "Well, okay. Who's going to hire me to be the AD on a Jeff Bridges movie?"
Right.
So, well, give him a call. So I called this lady named Bonnie Weiss, who was the UPM, who was a great gal. And it's not gal, I'm insulting her, but she's a great person. She's cool. She was awesome. A great and tough, smart, and just an awesome person. And Deborah Lee, who was the producer on it, who I got to know, became very good friends with. And so it was being directed by this French guy who had never done a film in the U.S. He'd done a short film in Paris, a guy named Dominic Forma. So I called and said, "Hey, my name's David Cluck. I'm a non-guild AD. I heard you guys might be looking for." "Oh, yeah." And I think one of them said, "I think we heard your name from the Bond company or something like that." So I was like, "Would you be willing to come in for an interview today?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Right.
And came in, briefly met Bonnie and Deborah, and they said, "Well, come in and meet Dominique." I sat down with Dominique, and we talked for an hour and a half, mostly about the movie The Insider, which was one of our favorite movies.
Oh, wild.
And
I like that movie.
We talked and talked.
Great movie.
And before I left, I had the job.
Oh, nice.
So it was just, that was one of the few times I've done a film where I just really connected with the director so well. And he was completely, he just seemed completely free. The director doesn't always have your back, because they can be threatened. Some directors are very threatened by ADs, and that's their problem, frankly, because they're too, maybe they've got issues. But a smart director is like, embrace where an idea comes from anywhere.
Sure.
But Dominique was great, and so I just felt completely free to offer up any thoughts or ideas. I was in every casting session. I was in every rehearsal.
Let me ask you this. I mean, this is even though I teach a film class and I know a ton of film people, I'm still like wide-eyed just being around celebrities and stars. I mean, I have almost no experience being around famous people. Was it weird? Like, I mean, because you had come from local access. Like I said, your family's not in the business. So was it weird walking into a room and like there's Jeff Bridges?
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely. I'm pretty starstruck. I still starstruck. Oh my god, I love it.
It would be so weird.
I still get butterflies. Oh my god, the actors are showing up today. Oh my god.
I've basically never experienced it. I just can't imagine sitting at a table and the Big Lebowski is across the table. I'm like, oh my god, that's the Big Lebowski. Like,
I'll never forget.
I don't know if I could do it.
So Jeff, obviously, we were prepping, so Jeff hadn't started. We did have a week's rehearsal period on this movie, Scenes of the Crime, and I remember. Deborah was like, "Oh, hey, Dave, on Sunday, Dominique needs to drive up for a meeting with Jeff Can you call him and just get directions to his house?
Oh, wow.
Like, sure. Here's the number. Okay. Okay. Hello? Hi, Jeff, please. This is Jeff. Hi, Jeff. I'm David. I'm the AD on this.
Yeah.
Dominique's going to come see you. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So have him come up the 101, exit Hot Springs Road, go up this ramp just to the left, and that's us. Okay, great. Hey, nice to talk to you. Nice to talk to you, too. And I remember when Jeff lived up in Santa Barbara. So he was staying in a hotel in downtown because we were shooting at the Ambassador Hotel, most of the film, right outside the Ambassador Hotel on a street where like a hostage situation takes place. And so I remember Jeff had showed up, and where our offices were, there was this big green, grassy area, and somebody had picked him up at his hotel, and Jeff got out of his car, and I could see, maybe 100 yards across, and there was Jeff Bridges, and it's like, you could literally, he was such a movie, I could see from 100 yards away, there's a movie star down there.
Oh,
Just
wow.
the way he carried himself.
Yeah, that celebrity.
He was tall and handsome, and he had that celebrity, and he comes over, and he was just the nicest guy, and we got to be so close. He was such a nice guy, such a pleasure to work with. I saw him a couple of times since then, and he was always super warm and friendly. And we would go for drinks after work and stuff like that.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, so he was a really good dude and an absolute pleasure to work. Loved to joke about, do Big Lebowski lines and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, he was hilarious. But one of the hardest working, most focused people I've ever met.
Really?
My fear always was doing these small, because that was like a $7 million budget film. And it's like, oh boy, are these actors going to take it seriously? They're used to doing big, it's different when you're working for Steven Spielberg. Everybody's on their best behavior. But here's this French director who's never really done anything, and all this crew of guys who are these guys,
Right.
But he was so into it, so serious.
He's
so
a pro,
focused.
man. He is a pro.
Absolute pro. It's such a pleasure. So that was a huge turning point for me, frankly.
So, dude, once you did a movie with Jeff Bridges, now, I mean, obviously you had a career before, but that's kind of the big time. I mean, that is the big time.
Yeah, no, it was great. And I mean, so I was, and that experience working with those people and doing these jobs, and then, doing a few other jobs around that time was great, because I felt I was like really kind of hitting a good stride. And
you were moving out.
Yeah, definitely. It was in 2002 that I got a call from my agent, and I'd been working on a short film that was directed by Hank Azaria.
Oh, wow.
So I've been working on that for a couple of weeks, and I got a call from my agent saying, hey, we got this project. It stars Charlize Theron.
Oh,
and
nice.
It's a director named Patty Jenkins, and it's a movie about this female serial killer. But it's super low budget, and they'd love to meet you. And I said, okay. And I'd met Charlize.
To clarify for listeners, so this is the film Monster, is that correct?
This was the film Monster with Charlize Theron that really kind of put her on the map and put Patty Jenkins on the map.
Great, man, I love this movie, but go ahead and tell your story.
So anyway, the next week I came in for the interview, and because they didn't want me to meet Patty, because they wanted me to have the same, a fair shot as anybody, having read the script. So Patty and I we hit it off quite well. She was a great person, and we started talking. There was a couple of moments that we talked about, and like at one point she was like, so the scenes at the house, Dave, the way I want to do the house, it's a really special way. I want them super naturalistic. I said, yeah, something like Close Encounters. She's like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Close Encounters. Spielberg does that better than anybody. I said, oh, yeah, to me, that's where his strength is, that naturalism. You see it. She's like, oh, exactly. So I think that probably got me the job.
You got the connection. Great. So listeners out there, unfortunately, the Bangkok podcast is not a movie criticism show. I would love to talk about Monster for hours. David and I could talk about it for hours. But if you haven't seen it, you should. It is a biopic based on a real-life woman who was a serial killer, Eileen Wuornos.
Eileen Wuornos, yeah.
Yeah, that's her name. And it's an incredible performance by Charlize Theron. For one thing, Charlize Theron is a absolutely drop-dead gorgeous woman, and in the movie she has to be made not to be so pretty, to put it bluntly. And so when you hear her being casted on this role, it sounds like a bad idea. So this is amazing. I mean, so you've got an absolute, real, legitimate career. You're and I know you worked on more movies since then. But what was your very first initiation to Thailand?
Well, about not long after Monster, I was still friends with Dominique Forma, the director I'd done the Jeff Bridges film called Scenes of the Crime with. And he had met a guy who's from Manhattan, Kansas, of Taiwanese descent. His parents were actually from Taipei. He had worked in politics and had basically given up a career working in politics and come to LA because he wanted to be an actor. So Dominique said, hey, can you help? You should meet my friend Will. And he wants to be an actor, and maybe you can help him get his SAG card or something like that. So I met him. We immediately liked him. He's just a very nice guy and energetic and focused and hardworking. And so he wanted to take me to lunch. So we went to lunch, and so he said, yeah. So I really want to be an actor. And I said, well, it's tough. I mean, acting. I mean, there's 6 million actors and about 60 jobs. So. In LA, so it's
sure.
So that those are your odds. And I said that, so well, how does someone like achieve success? And I said, well, the main thing would be to produce something of your own. He's like, okay, well, how do I produce? I said, well, producing's the easy part. So raising money, that side of the physical production side, you can find somebody to do that for you. And that's what I do. I'm a hired line producer, so I do that all the time. But someone who can raise money, that's everything. There's no shortage of ideas or story ideas and this and that. And he's like, well, I know the story I want to do. I want to do a story about Taiwanese, about the White Terror period that took place in Taiwan in the 80s, and I want to, that's in politics. It's all I did was raise money. So I think I can raise money. I said, well, you should give it a shot then, So that started. Then over the course of like the next 4 years, really was the process of Will raising money. And Dominique at that time had agreed to come on board as a director of a project. Will and I met several times, and he would say, well, I want to tell a story. And I said, well, I think the most important thing is that you tell the story, through the eyes of an American. I said, most of the Taiwanese know this story, this concept of Chiang Kai-shek moving nationalist China from mainland China after World War II into a colony that was primarily Japanese descendants, and taking it over. And what I didn't know is that they established martial law in 1946 and it stayed in place till 1988, even though Taiwan had ascended to the 18th largest economy.
So this became what movie?
This became Formosa Betrayed.
Formosa Betrayed. And so
what happened was we needed to shoot in Taiwan circa 1981. So the story was originally set in Kansas and Taiwan. So when I became, so at one point, Will and Dominique officially asked me to come on board as producer. So I said, okay. So I originally kind of fired the first writer and brought on another writer, and we kind of started honing the story points. And it became clear to me that we should probably not shoot in Taiwan because it's not really a production center, and it's very politically dangerous story. So I didn't think we were going to get
right.
much.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I had.
So this is around when? 2005, 2006, something like that.
This was 2006, 2007.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, I tried to produce a film in the mid '90s called East of Java that was going to shoot in Thailand. I'd never come to Thailand. I didn't know anything really about Thailand. I used to always joke with Will when he asked me to do a movie about Taiwan. I said, "Cool, I love Thai food," So,
classic.
But what happened is an ex-girlfriend of mine had done a movie in Thailand. So I was kind of concerned because Will had raised a significant amount of money. He had done a lot of fundraising. I was gone.
That's
great. On fundraising trips with him.
A lot of people say they can raise money, but not many people can.
Oh no, that's all. It's Hollywood's full of charlatans that are trying to do it.
Sure.
So we did it. So here we were, two guys, with $5.5 million in the bank.
Wow.
And trying to, and then Dominique left the project. I moved back to France, and then I brought on Jan Samuel, who's a director I'd done My Sassy Girl with, who's still one of my very close friends. And then that didn't work out because his agent kind of put a kibosh on it. And then we ended up hiring another director. And we were at the precipice of an actors and a writer's strike, which we just got over here as of yesterday. The writer's strike part of it just ended, or the actor's strike just ended yesterday in Hollywood. But so I needed a place to shoot that looked like 1981 Taiwan, because Taipei didn't look anything like 1981 Taipei.
Interesting.
Because it's changed so much. So I thought of Thailand. So I called an ex-girlfriend of mine who had done a movie in Thailand. I was getting pretty nervous because we were getting close to like 6 months away from when we needed to start shooting. And I was like, we don't, do we have the budget? Do we have enough money? How do we,
and you didn't have a location.
I need to find I need to find a place where we can do a shootout in an airport, post 9/11. And so it was a challenge. So she had me call a production services company in Thailand called Living Films, called Chris. Immediately had a great conversation with him. I got the best night of sleep that I've had in a while after that discussion, because it's like, wow, they seem pretty sharp and everything is going to be good. So then we started moving full steam ahead with a project. I decided to move the shoot from Kansas to Chicago because Kansas was sort of cost prohibitive because there's not it's not a production center. We'd have to bring a lot of people in, and Chicago's a much more cinematic city. I've done 2 movies I've done a movie before in Chicago, this film that Michael Keaton directed, and so I felt comfortable in Chicago, classic Midwestern look to it, and I thought it would be much better. So we ended up shooting in Chicago for 2 weeks, and then we moved to Thailand, and so we had a couple of scouts where we'd come and visited Thailand and looked at locations, and ended up coming over here with a whole bunch of people that I thought we needed at the time, but now that I know Thai crews, I would bring a lot less people. So that was
your first exposure. You were basically kind of busy, so you didn't come over here to party or hang out. Like it was like, oh my God, we got to get to work. So you just kind of jumped
right
in.
off the plane.
Oh yeah. Okay.
What I didn't know is that the funny thing was I'd come here originally scouting, and we stayed on Long Swan Road and at a hotel down there, and it's like, wow, these hotels are amazing. Oh my God, how much are we paying for these? Wow, like $70 for this. Like, my God, this is amazing. It'd be $400 in New York, and so we're out scouting all day, running around. So no, and having nice food and stuff like that. So it was fun, but then we were gone back to LA because we had to get prepped for Chicago and get it cast, and a lot. It was a mammoth amount of work to get done, and. So we came back to Thailand, and our hotel was they put us at the Aspen Suites, which was a long stay suite down in Soi 2, way down Soi 2.
Okay.
And all I knew was that in the morning, I'd go downstairs, I'd get in a van, and there was always curtains drawn in the van. I'd get in the van, I'd be in the van for about 45 minutes. Like, man, they couldn't find an office, a hotel a little closer to the office. Like, okay, I guess bad traffic and everything. And a couple nights in, the person who was brought on as our local line producer, because the Living Films had a couple jobs going at the time, is they hired this guy Paul Spurrier, who we both know and who I've since collaborated with many times. And I remember my third night in town, Paul was like, hey, do you want to have dinner tonight or something? I said, yeah. I was like, great, let's meet up. So we worked all day, and he's like, I'll just meet you at your hotel at 7:30. I said, okay, great. So I got downstairs, I'm waiting in the lobby, and Paul's like, oh, so I'm just leaving the office. I'll see you in a minute. I'm like, you're leaving the office? And all of a sudden, this motorbike comes buzzing up, and he's sitting on the back of it. And I'm like, you were at our production office? Where were you? He's like, yeah, it's just across the street. I'm like, why is that? Well, because in a van, you've got to go around. On a motorbike, we just crossed. It was just
that's so funny.
We were literally on Soi 1. The office was, and our hotel was on Soi 2. But to get around, we literally had to go to Asok or something and turn around. Oh, that's
great. That is a classic
Bangkok story. It was just like, my gosh.
So you thought your office was like on the other side of the city,
miles and miles away, But we were so close. That was one of my funny classic stories.
Well, it's cool because it sounds like a lot of people you met on that first film are people you still know and I know. So you kind of, it sounds like you got lucky. Like you just hooked up with cool people who they already had some experience in Thailand, and so you had good mentors from the beginning.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, luckily on the main crew, were handpicked people that I'd worked with. Our first AD was a guy Jay Ostrowski, who was my second AD for many years. I hired the editor Howard Smith, who I'd worked with on the Michael Keaton, done Michael Keaton's film, and our DP Eric Hardowich, a great guy and a great friend who sadly passed last year, but great cameraman. And I knew everybody, so I handpicked all those. But all the people that Living Films and Paul had brought on. Most of them are still my friends. I still see them. I still work with them. I still see them. I still hang out with them.
Now,
it's amazing.
So, where did you end up shooting? Did you go out into the jungle? Did you get up to that kind of stuff, or
no? I mean, we were. It was a set mostly in the city of Taipei at the time. So, we were shooting a little bit in the outskirts, but some stuff right in the heart of it. But then we had a couple of days out of Kanchanaburi. So we had to go out there. We stayed in a different hotel.
Gotcha.
So we did a few nights out there because we had in the movie. There's a scene where the Ming and the James Vanderbeek's character have to go to Kaohsiung, which is the other side of Taipei. So we shot some of that in some places we found up there. But we shot a lot of it. We shot for about 4 days at Don Mueang Airport when the old terminal was still closed down.
Oh wow!
So we could actually we decorated a whole 100 meters of the thing as Taipei with all the signage and everything like that.
Very cool.
And we could close it down.
Now, did you have at least some Thai crew or Thai staff or Thai actors or actresses or extras?
Mostly. I mean, I brought about 7 people with me.
Oh, that's all.
I brought the DP, I brought the first AD, the gaffer, costume designer, and Will and I brought our assistant John, who was an associate producer, and a couple other people. But other than that, we had we had a Thai gaffer, we had a Thai key grip, we had a Thai operator, focus puller, and
this is great. And so you were used to.
Sound was all local guys. Sound, art department. We had a production designer we brought, but
So you were used to working with very professional people in LA, the world capital of filmmaking, but basically the Thai crew was good. Is what you're saying?
Great. I mean, it was an awakening for me. Certainly, I was very pleased, and what and I just fell in love with the Thai crew because the attitude, the sense of humor, the sense of joy, the fun, the hardworkingness. Sometimes, I mean, I love most of my LA, New York, Chicago, Alabama, crews and New Mexico crews that I've worked with. But you can find guys that kind of have a chip on their shoulder, and that gets a little old after a while.
Well, it's funny.
Here, you don't really. It's not. It's a cultural difference.
Agreed. We have talked about this. I think you're going to get to this point. We've talked about it. One thing about Thai people is they just seem to be less driven by ego, and you're just less likely to have ego-driven friction.
Yeah.
It's just they're not easily offended, and everyone's kind of chill and relaxed, and they tend to laugh stuff off.
Yeah.
And there's not ego battles.
Well, and the other thing that I had to learn as I started doing more work here as an AD, so I started getting hired on gigs in Thailand as an AD, and I was pretty aware of a lot of the cultural norms in Thailand. And I used to have to tell people that would come from Europe or from America, it's listen, you can't lose your temper.
That's
the
right.
Thais don't like it if they don't like screaming, and I'm not a screaming type AD normally anyways. So it's you gotta, you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And it's
that is a good advice for dealing with Thai staff.
Yeah, so there's strengths and weaknesses. And I get people asking me all the time, I'm coming to Thailand to make a movie. Who would I need to bring? What do I need to get? And I can always, we talk at lengthy talks. It's there's some really strong Thai crew members that are good at this. There's some guys that are that. You might want to, and then in terms of just knowing the dynamic of a film set, I'll always say, you might want to either hire a DP outside, Farang in Thailand, or bring your own DP because you want that dynamic that exists there.
And maybe you need very strong communication.
Yeah, and
you might need
exactly.
a native speaker or someone who with excellent English.
So yeah, and I've worked on shows in Thailand. I worked on films where they brought tons of people. Oh my God, it was amazing how many people they bring and just the hotel bills they rack up. But I think the vast majority, of people that come here the first time to make a film, if they come back to make a second one, they realize how that there's so many great people here in Thailand that they don't need to bring as many people from the outside.
So what was it like for you? So you did this movie Formosa Betrayed. I know you ended up getting more work. At the time, were you just thinking, okay, this is just another one of my countries I've been to? Or was it kind of a slow romance, or did you just fall in love with Thailand right away? What was your...
No, I'd been here for 2 months working, so in May and June of 2008, and a little bit in July. And then I decided to come back for Christmas and New Year. I thought, I'll make a trip to Thailand.
Oh, this time vacationing though.
Vacation. I'm going to come back
cool.
and just enjoy it. I met all these people, and I become friends with Paul Spurrier because we'd worked hand in hand for 2.5 months together. Attached at the hip practically. So, and I had a friend, my buddy Kyle, was going to come with me to Thailand. So at the last minute, Kyle kind of flaked on me. So I was like, So I called Paul. I was talking to Paul on Skype, and he's like, "So what's going on?" I said, "Well, I've been busy. I'd done a film in New York, and we've been back and forth between LA and New York a lot." And he was like, I was like, I was thinking of coming to Thailand for the holidays, but Kyle was going to come with me, and he's kind of bailed, so I don't know if I'm going to go. He's like, "Oh, you should still." Paul's like, "Just come. You know me. You met a bunch of my friends. Just come. We'll have great." So I was like, "Oh, cool.
Sure.
Thanks. Great." So I did. I came for 2 weeks. I stayed for 3. And then I went back to America in early January, and this is 2009, and the economy was really taking a hit from the financial crisis.
Sure. Yeah,
so
that's
a lot
financial.
of jobs kept canceling. So like 3 months later, I'd done a job. I went back in January, did a month-long job in New York. Then I went back to LA. Job went away. Another job went away. So then it was April, and I hadn't worked for 2 months, which was a rarity for me back then. And I was like, I called Paul, and we were chatting on Skype, and chit-chatting. He's like, finally says, "So when are you coming back to Bangkok?" I'm like, I don't know. Well, why would I come back to Bangkok? He's like, "Well, what are you doing in LA?" I'm like, "Nothing." He's like, "Well, you can do nothing in Bangkok and be enjoying your life." And I was
That's
like, so while we were on the phone, I pulled up kayak and I bought a plane ticket. So a couple weeks later, I was back in Thailand, and I stayed for a month. And then I came back to LA for like 2 weeks, and my friend Chris Ball was coming to Thailand. He's like, "Dude, I'm going there to meet some friends, and I might do some movies there. Would you want to come?" So I went back to Thailand, and then
This is wild. I mean,
yeah.
this is a similar story to a lot of our listeners who they don't become expats immediately for whatever reason, work, life issues, but they kind of do fall in love with Thailand. So they come up with some reason to come back. So, once a year, twice a year. And so you did this for a while. You were essentially a repeat tourist, but also you got some work too.
Yeah, then I started working. And I was here in Thailand, and I got to be sort of involved because of Paul in the 2009 Bangkok Film Festival, which was a lot of fun. So I got invited to speak at one of the seminars of that, and I brought a friend of mine.
Nice.
My buddy Greg came over he was living in New York at the time, and I think he came, he had produced the Blair Witch Project. So he came and did a seminar that was on micro budget filmmaking, and when you hit the lottery of a film, like Blair Witch did. And so then it was just sort of like, boy, if I wasn't working, it was like I was finding some excuse to come here, and just really enjoying the life and the culture.
It's cool that you could honestly. It's cool that you could also make money here. I mean, a lot of people like to chill here, but if you need to support yourself, Bangkok's okay to support yourself, but if you want to kind of make really good Western money, that's not easy. But the cool thing is you're working on international productions.
Yeah.
Eventually, you became a member of the Directors Guild. I don't know exactly when that happened. So you were able to make good money, basically solid money.
Yeah, no, I was still making my Western salary. So when I was going back to the States and doing jobs, and I was still, so I was keeping busy, and so yeah, I was very fortunate. So and it makes a big difference. I mean, I was able to not work as much, and the fact that my money went a lot farther here.
Went further here for sure.
I was kind of.
That was really cool, man. I loved hearing that because obviously I wasn't there, and as someone who used to work in that industry, in the film business back in the day, I went to film school and I worked for years in Canada in the film industry. I've said many times that usually it's the most abrasive, loudest, and angriest people that become successful in the film industry. But there are exceptions, and Chris Lowenstein is one of them. He is a guest on season 1 of our podcast.
Sure.
And David is another one. He's such a cool, normal, funny, nice guy.
Okay, I don't know about normal, but you might be going too far there.
Okay.
No, I totally agree. I think he defies expectations when it comes to people who work in the movie industry, especially his role as an assistant director. He's actually the guy who kind of commands the set. The directors are often kind of more in the background, and the ADs are the ones that are corralling everyone, yelling and screaming and telling people what to do.
I've done it, man. I've done it on small movies, and it is a hard job. AD.
Oh yeah, for sure. As he talked about, and I don't know, man. He's a good friend of mine. I love sitting around with him and just hearing his stories, and so doing this interview was super easy, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And your intro was perfect because it's actually guys like David that make it for me very easy to want to stay in Thailand.
Right.
I think when I was here 20 years, I think we did a show on the reasons why I stay. And I think I did say, God, I don't remember the reasons I gave. I think I had 5 reasons why I stay in Thailand. But I think one of them was that I actually like the expat population here, or at least I should say this. I think it's easy to find cool, interesting expats. And it's, if I didn't like the foreigners here, it would be much harder to stay. But, I do. I mean, it's not like I like all the expats, but I make these connections. You and I have a good group of friends going back 10 years.
Yeah, longer than that even. But I think there's a lot of trash here. But when you meet that one guy, we've all got friends, like you said, 10 years or more. You meet that one friend and they're gold, and it's just great to get to know them. And they're good people.
No, David's a very good example of just an expat who's had just a very interesting life. When you sit down and talk to him, I don't want to give anything away, but in part 2 we get into some truly unbelievable experiences he's had. So, listeners, if you enjoyed this part 1, you will enjoy part 2 more.
It's so interesting to me, especially in the film business, and especially for him because he's worked with so many A-listers. Charlize Theron, you mentioned, and a few others. But it's so weird working on a film because you're suddenly thrown into this like intense working environment with a few dozen people, and you bond really quickly and really closely.
Sure. For weeks or months or however long the shoot is. And then once you're done, it's like everything just disappears. Oh, yeah. Or people go their own way. Sure. Yeah.
Right. Now, if you're lucky, some of those friendships stay around, but it's such a weird business where you've become like really, really close with a group of strangers, and then it all just dissipates.
Well,
it's extra weird when some of those people are famous,
Right. It's definitely an odd business. And you and I haven't been directly involved in it, but I've been kind of adjacent to the business for a long time, and I know a lot of people involved. And of course, I teach a film class at my university. Sure. So for me, it's just to be around actual filmmakers, real filmmakers like David, is just a pleasure. I love it, and you'll hear more about it in part 2.
Cool. Thanks for coming on, David. I'm looking forward to next week.
Cool.
All right. Well, we ask our listeners to send us a voicemail using the little microphone button on our website if they have something to say. And this week we heard from our buddy Scott, who had a couple of interesting comments on our recent episode about expat wins. Take it away, Scott.
Hi, Greg and Ed. This is longtime listener Scott Coates. I was just listening to your expat wins episode, and 2 came to mind for me that I probably waited damn near a decade to do. And I think if you're going to be here for any length of time, number 1, get yourself a water dispenser. They're probably 4,000 to 5,000 baht, and then sign up to a water delivery service like Sprinkle, for instance. And then they're delivering 18.9 liter bottles of water to your house. You don't have to be going in, out, lugging around bottles of water and wasting plastic. And the other one is buy a washing machine and hook it up on your balcony. They start at about 6,000 baht. A good decent sized one is maybe 10, but then you're able to do laundry at home. For me, I waited, like I said, about a decade. And to me, those are 2 big wins if you're going to be here for a while. Thanks for the great listens. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Man,
that water dispenser thing is so funny. It's funny. I don't have one, but I'm really just concerned about the overall water quality. And I'm almost tempted. Have you ever seen these things that it's even way beyond the water dispenser? It's like a water filter for your entire place. So it's more. It's almost even. It's not even. It's kind of like semi-industrial, but it's just like a giant water filter for your whole place. No. So when you wash dishes, when you take a shower, all the water is filtered.
Oh no, I've only seen ones that like fit onto your tap.
No. It's like water. No, this is much bigger. I want to. Oh. So I aspire to way more than just having clean drinking water. I want actually clean water to shower in.
Well, it's a good one because I only got one a couple of years ago, and they do make a difference. It's nice to have really cold water there whenever you want. Of course, you can just keep it in the fridge, but also it's like my mother-in-law used to love using plastic bottles, and she would just throw them out all the time. So now we got this thing, so it cuts down on garbage. The washing machine one was interesting. And I think back to my early days here. And at first, I didn't really get what Scott was meaning. But then, I lived without a fridge for like 2 years here. I didn't have a refrigerator in my place. And it was even longer. I got my first washing machine equipped condo came after my like 5th or 6th year living in Bangkok.
So I had a washing machine right away, but a lot of my expat friends pay a laundry. I actually the apartment I moved into had a washing machine straight away, but a lot of my friends didn't have a washing machine for a while, and you just take it to a laundry service.
Yeah, I used to take it to this weird place on the corner, and the woman who operated it was sort of like this sort of Yoda-like creature that would emerge from the shadows in the back. She had like 4 teeth and used to give me a big hug whenever I walked in. And she cleaned laundries like a champion, and that's where I got it done. But it is nice to have cold water and laundry at the press of a button. That's definitely an upgrade.
For sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. All right. A final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
True Blue. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website, just like Scott did in the feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKKGreg. So thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Take care of yourselves and your family. Let's get back here next week.
For sure.